Welcome everyone to the Inner Solutions live stream. This is number what? This got to be a dozen. It's got to be number 12, number 13.
I've lost all count at this point.
Yeah, it's so great. My name is Jim.
This is Ennis.
And we are Inner Solutions. We are a company that is dedicated to developing the mental health resources that we wish we'd had when we were going through our journey. From two guys who suffered for years and years from anxiety, panic attacks, and depression. And now we've been able to sustainably feel better. And welcome to all the newcomers who are here. Tina, how are you doing? Janice, how you doing? Guys, feel free to put any questions you have into the chat and the comment section below. We're going to get to every question before we end tonight. And we just want you guys to know, one of the main reasons why we're doing this live stream is to kind of destigmatize and create a space, a really nice, non-judgmental space where you know that you're just not the only one suffering, whether it's panic attacks, anxiety, depression, or any other mental health ailment. There are just millions and millions of people who have these kind of diagnoses, and even millions and millions more who don't have the diagnoses.
Exactly. So, number one, you're really, really not alone in this. There's so many people going through what you're going through, even the really weird symptoms, even the really weird sensations. They're common, they're normal, and it's able to be better, right? You're not stuck. There's another big point that we always emphasize. You're really, really not stuck. This is something that can be addressed, can be healed. And there's so much you can do to feel better. It's not even funny. And so when it comes down to it, always remember those main things. You're not alone and you're not stuck. And as we go about all the questions and answers for tonight, what we're really trying to do is cut through some of the noise. Really not stuck. We're two guys who have, as Jim said, we've been through it ourselves, and we have a lot of empathy for anyone going through it. And we basically want to just make sure that with all the information out there from different people who are kind of just speaking theoretically, who have never actually gone through it themselves, all the people who are basically doing their best to give you some information, yet it can be confusing. It can be hard to figure out what's the right thing to listen to, what's the right thing to do. So we're here to give some very, very practical, simple, straightforward advice on, okay, if you have a panic attack, this is what you do. If you have this issue, this is what you do. So we're going to cover things like when you're having trouble driving, having trouble going grocery shopping, having trouble socializing with people. Maybe you're having trouble sleeping, panic attacks at night, waking up with anxiety, feeling restless and on edge throughout the day. Maybe you have some derealization, depersonalization. You name it, we're going to try to cover everything. And if you have a question about something, go ahead and ask. As Jim said, we're going to cover every question that we get tonight and just do our best to give people practical, straightforward, actionable advice that can really help them.
Yeah, and guys, before we start, why don't we start with just a check-in, and we can check in here. Just check in with your state right now. So why don't we can do a body scan. You can just kind of look at your thoughts and think about, well, how am I feeling right now? What's your state? And one of the things, and it might seem so basic, and I'm sorry that they're not mean to be patronizing, but this can be really helpful, is if you don't really know how you're feeling, or if it's very vague and you're thinking, well, I'm just, I'm okay, or whatever, you can Google feelings list and look through through a feelings list and get a more intentional kind of state of the personal union right now. So am I feeling agitated? Am I feeling a little hopeless? Am I feeling tired? Am I feeling anything? And just in addressing, and more specifically and intentionally, how you're feeling can be an amazing exercise just to identify your feelings.
Yeah, and you get clear on where in the body is that sensation happening. When let's say you're feeling sad or angry, those emotions have a very real location. Typically, people don't say, I feel angry in my pinky fingers. I feel sad in my ears.
That'd be weird if the anger was here.
Got a really angry.
It's pinky.
But basically, notice where in your body are you feeling that emotion, because when you get clear on, number one, what you're going through, and number two, where in your body you're experiencing it, you're well on your way from kind of making some space, separating yourself from the experience that is happening in your body. And when people are going through a particularly challenging experience, this is so important to make it go from being an utterly overwhelming pain to something that's more manageable and can be basically managed just by feeling it. And when you're doing that, all those sensations that were extremely painful, they can start to diminish. So you begin to realize that, okay, wait a minute. I haven't been breathing for the last couple minutes. Let me take a breath. Wait a minute. I have some tension in my stomach and my chest. I've been tightened in my entire body for the past couple minutes. Let me relax a bit. When I say relax, I don't mean to use that vaguely. I mean in a specific way. Your muscles right now, your muscular system, there's definitely some point in your body that is rigid needlessly. Your stomach, you might be holding it in and you don't even realize it. You might have a tight butt, as we call it. It might be a tight butt, and you can just relax that. You might have a whole bunch of tension in your back. It's very real.
Oh, man. So, guys, we want to welcome everybody watching. Just throw in the chat. Throw in your state. How you feeling? And welcome, Edita. Welcome, Missy and Janice and Tina and all the rest of you guys. We're going to do a check-in with each other. But first, if you check the subtext of this channel, you can find a bunch of free resources that we have on our YouTube page. That link is right under there. So, Ennis, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. Usually when we're doing these live streams, I feel a mix of excited energy because I know we're going to get to talk about a lot of different things. There's, the responsibility of keeping people's attention. It's not, these days, attention is so valuable. It's like anyone who's watching this, thanks, you could be doing anything and you're here watching this, investing in yourself. So we want to make sure that we're giving you the best experience possible. So there's a little bit of, I don't want to call it pressure, but just the expectation of like, hey, let's really help some people here. And so that sometimes manifests in me in a little bit of tension in the throat. So it's as I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay,
you seem hyper.
There's a little tension in my throat.
Anybody who's here who knows you can tell you're up. Like,
yeah,
oh,
I'm like,
yeah. You sound like you've had about 5 cups of coffee.
I wish.
Which
dude.
is fine.
I haven't had a coffee in a while. They make me miss it.
Well, thank you for asking. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling calm. I'm feeling excited. I think one of the things we can start to do, because we have a new... What's up, Anisha? Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Been busy. One of the things we can do is, we've got a lot of new people in here. We could just throw some of the kind of basics about panic attacks and just some foundational things about anxiety that I think will be extremely useful.
Yeah, why don't we start with the feedback loop?
Yeah.
Okay, so the feedback loop is basically what we have seen as the primary cause of panic attacks. So the feedback loop is when you have a scary thought that creates a scary emotion, and then that scary emotion amplifies that scary thought, and they start to loop on each other. Another word for this is a vicious circle, right? Or a downward spiral. But we call it the feedback loop because it just is the word we came up with. And so when you're experiencing this feedback loop, it's really easy to let it get kind of out of hand and spiral out of control into a full-blown panic attack, because that thought that you're having is being amplified by the emotion. And the more intense that emotion feels, the more you think, there's really got to be something wrong. So let's give an example maybe. Let's say you have the thought, let's say you're going about your day and you notice that your heartbeat is beating a little faster than normal. So you have the thought, oh no, my heartbeat's going really fast. What if I'm about to have a panic attack? So that thought, of course, creates some trepidation, some fear in the body. You might suddenly tense up. You might suddenly feel a lump in your throat. You might get dizzy, or whatever symptom is common for you, you might experience to a small degree. And then when you notice that symptom, you go, oh, no, now I'm really going to have a panic attack. Oh, it's happening. Not now. This is such an inconvenient moment. These are all thoughts you might have in response to that emotion, that sensation. And then the more intense those thoughts become, the more intense the emotions become, and it just spirals into a full-blown panic attack. So the key is, how do you break the feedback loop?
Yeah. Well, the thing about the feedback loop is that it literally feeds on itself, and it can feel like such an autopilot thing where you go from really calm to just completely like having these really heavy symptoms inside of a panic attack, like Ennis was saying, heart palpitations, trouble breathing, feeling like there's kind of energy running through your body, migraines, and it's important to know there's kind of three main myths about a panic attack. A panic attack's not going to kill you, it's not going to make you go crazy, and it's not going to make you lose control. That's it. Once you know those three things, and once you really absorb those three things and are able to use them as a self-coaching mechanism during a panic attack, you're much more armed and equipped to break that feedback loop. Meaning, like, once you feel this sensation in your body, or say like you skip a breath, or your heart palpitates really heavily, or you get some dizziness that like Janice is saying right now, or you hyperventilate like Edita's saying, you can feel the sensation, and then when you feel the sensation trigger a thought like, oh no, like, oh my God, or oh damn, like the panic attack is happening again, you can just let that thought flow through, right? So you can kind of either put in a new thought, which is like, hey, this is just, this is common for a panic attack. This is totally normal. We're going to live, like, we've been through this before. We're not going to die. We're not going to go crazy. We're not going to lose control. You break that feedback loop kind of right at the start. Because if what you find is that if you stay with just the sensations, if you stay with just the head spinning, you want it to be over, like it's uncomfortable. But the fear of the head spinning, or the fear of the panic attack, or the fear of when is this going to end, or is this going to get worse, or am I going to pass out, or is any of this going to happen, is what keeps that feedback loop going. So once you lose all that, you have a spinning head, and it sucks, but it's going to end, and you can stay with just the physical sensation instead of telling yourself all these stories about it.
Right. And so you really do want to start with the thoughts, as Jim was alluding to. Your sensations are already there, and it doesn't do you much good to try to push away the sensations or to try to make them go away. The way to break the feedback loop is not by pushing away the sensations, it's by going to what's sustaining them. And it's the thoughts. The thoughts are what's sustaining them. That fear of what if I'm about to die? That fear of what if I'm about to go crazy?
Yeah.
So when you address those fears, suddenly the feedback loop loses its fuel and it kind of peters out. The analogy that I love to give with this is like a fan blade. When you have a fan spinning and you unplug it, it's still got some momentum. So even though it's lost its energy source, it's still spinning for a couple minutes afterwards. Your emotions are the same way. Your emotions are being created by and sustained by these thoughts that you're having. So when you stop thinking for a moment, the emotions will begin to settle down, but it'll still take a couple minutes for that whole process to really settle down before you feel totally calm. So one method that we give, and Jim has alluded to this already, is you let the thoughts flow by you. And a good way to do this is to focus on just the sensations. So you kind of drop the story of what you're feeling, and you just go straight to the sensation. Some people have a hard time feeling their body. So to start, we usually recommend a practice where you feel your finger. So go ahead and do that for me right now. Just take a minute, feel your finger. Like your pointer finger usually has a lot of nerves and it's easy to feel. Feel the temperature around it. Feel the blood flowing in it. Feel the almost just like that life energy inside of it. And feel it without thinking about it, without any description, without thinking about it. Just go to the direct experience. So as you feel, you can just move that whole attention up your arm, feel your whole body in the same way. Feel your whole body as just the direct experience without the story of it. And the more you do that, the more the thoughts will settle down, the more the whole panic can settle down, and you'll just start to overcome it. However, the challenge here is sometimes a panic attack can be quite uncomfortable. So how do you deal with it when it feels just so uncomfortable and there's a lot of, uncomfortable sensations? How do you deal with that? How do you stay present to that?
To a panic attack, I mean, that's kind of the holding, like staying grounded in knowing you're going to be okay. That's where the confidence of knowing those 3 myths, that you're not going to die, you're not going to go crazy, you're not going to lose control, you're not going to pass out, you're not going to become so dizzy that you just lose your mind. And everybody I talk to, literally every client I've ever had, has said one of those 4 or 5 things, that they're scared they're going to die. And so when it's happening in you, there's measures that you can take. There's measures you can take in the moment, and then there's measures you can take outside of the moment to prepare yourself. So there's practices that you can put in place. But in the moment, the key is to just stay grounded in. You're going to have thoughts that are kind of panicking. Your mind is built to point out dangerous things or things malfunctioning in your body. But it's important just to know, like, that fight or flight mechanism is causing all of those symptoms. It's just a little misfire in the body, but there's not going to be any kind of irreparable damage, or there's not going to be anything that's going to happen that's going to be so permanent with it. So staying grounded and noticing the thoughts, letting them flow through. You don't necessarily need to stop them. You can kind of do some internal self-coaching. In the book, we have the panic response plan. We talk about ways to signal to the nervous system that everything's okay. So we start by box breathing, right? So that's 4 by 4 by 4 by 4 breathing. Exhaling for 4, holding for 4, inhaling for 4, and holding for 4. And just doing that for a couple of minutes. And what you're doing is you're signaling to your body that's releasing the adrenaline in your bloodstream and the glucose and the CO2 that, like, hey, everything's okay. And so, like you were saying about the fan, what you just did is you just unplugged the fan. And so now the fan has a little bit of momentum, meaning that your body has released chemicals into it. And so those chemicals have to run their course a little bit. That's why panic attacks last 5 or 10 minutes. And so you're breaking that feedback loop physically. So the next step would be to break it cognitively or emotionally. And so you're staying grounded by saying, hey, it's okay. Like, we've been through this before. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be... I'm not going to die. I'm not going to lose control. I'm not going to go crazy. And let me just stay with the physical sensation. Let me focus on what's happening. My heart. Okay. And if you want to take it to the next level, what you can do is you can invite it in, is test it. Test my heart and say, okay, let me see if I can speed up my heart. And once you notice that your heart rate has a ceiling, it's not going to get any worse to a certain point. You realize that this is not a completely overwhelming or overtaking experience, and I'm going to be okay.
I love that. Why don't we go to some of the comments? We've got some questions here.
And guys, we want to invite everybody. The whole point of this is to share stories, share comments. We want to know what questions you may have. What are you going through? The whole point of this is to help you so that you guys know you're going to be okay and you're totally not stuck and wherever you are. So why don't we start with Stephanie?
What are some pointers you have for severe sleep anxiety? My thoughts are, I can't sleep. If I don't sleep, I will have panic attacks and bad anxiety tomorrow, and I won't be able to do anything. Then I spend all day wondering and panicking about if I'm going to sleep or not. What do you think about that?
Well, Stephanie, this is so specific that this part of you that is putting these thoughts and just being really nervous about it, it needs, like there's kind of a multi-pronged approach that you can take. But think of it as if there's this, like, really, really scared part of you that's really worried about and thinks it needs to warn you, like, hey, what if we don't sleep? Like, what if we can't go to sleep? And then when it's time to try to go to sleep, there's a part of you like, oh my God, if we don't sleep, then we're going to have panic attacks all day tomorrow. It's going to be a horrible day. So the first thing I would do, Stephanie, is just use the box breathing. Like, just when you feel that come on, try to settle yourself down, try to settle your nervous system down a bit by just breathing in and calming that fight or flight mechanism that's firing. Furthermore, I think that she needs to do some kind of parts work to differentiate herself from that part and to really understand, well, why is this part running so rampant right now? Like, why is this thought pattern in me that's just like, oh my God, I can't sleep and I don't want to do it. And that can be helped by like a mindfulness practice to get some room from the thoughts, to become more curious about the thoughts, to become more compassionate towards that part of her. In addition to working with a coach to connect with that part, because it's a very scared, anxious part. Like, think about if you took that part of you outside and just sat it down next to you. What would it sound like? It would probably sound like, oh my God, I can't sleep. If I don't sleep, I'm gonna have panic attacks all day tomorrow, and I really don't want to. And it's really scared. So what would you do if you had somebody next to you who was saying this stuff? Well, you'd be very like, first of all, you try to establish trust. You try to connect with it. It's like, hey, I'm Stephanie. Like, what's going on? How are you? Like, what are you scared? What happened? And they're very scared. So then you treat it with a lot of compassion. You treat it with a lot of patience. You'd meet it with a bunch of soft love. And you'd also probably be like, what can I do to help you? Like, what do you need from me? And Stephanie, you can find that feedback from parts inside of you that they'll kind of tell you what they need. And they'll tell you, they'll tell you what to do. So some inner coaching with a lot of compassion and a lot of curiosity to understand is the start of how to settle that. And then there's also just other external things you can do, right, to help you sleep. Things like to de-stimulate your nervous system. Things like having a meditation practice. Things like giving these parts time and inviting them in for certain. So because part of it maybe it's so loud because it doesn't feel like you're listening to it, or you're constantly suppressing it, like, oh my God, not this again, I don't want to think about it. Give it a chance to talk to you. If you have a scared child who's really worried about something, and they're like, oh, Mom, I'm so scared about XYZ, and you just, shove them in a closet and shut the door, you won't hear them for a little bit, but they're not going to get less scared. So what do you do to a scared child? You listen to it, you reassure it, you meet it with compassion and a lot of love. And Stephanie, you're really caught into that feedback loop there. And so you need some techniques to distance yourself from the thoughts a little bit so that you can observe them instead of being overwhelmed by them, and then develop the skills and the tools to be able to calm that part of you as if it's a separate entity that lives in you.
Yeah, I totally agree and echo everything that Jim is saying. And to add to that, there's other ways that you can get out of a fight or flight system. So you may have seen me yawning just a moment ago, and one reason is because
I thought you were bored with my answer, man.
I thought it was a great answer, but
you got a funny way of showing it.
So as Jim was, as he said earlier, I'm a little extra amped up right now. And so I took a second to notice that, and I could sense like anxiety in my own body. And even in this moment, I'm feeling a little bit, extra on edge. There's people here we got to discuss with. And I know for a long time, one trigger has been when it's inconvenient to just leave, right? You can feel a little trapped. So anyways, I started to do the practice that I teach. I take 2 inhalations in, and I take a long exhalation out. And this slows down everything. So, Stephanie, and anybody else who's listening, if you feel anxious right now, maybe you feel anxious when you sleep, do this. Let's do it together. 2 inhalations in, 1 long exhalation out. One more time.
So we actually have a video that talks a little bit more about this on our YouTube page. That the link is below if you want to check that out. But that's a great way to activate the parasympathetic nervous system from the. Yeah, that sounds really fancy, and it doesn't. Whatever.
But
it's
basically,
get out of fight or flight mode.
Gets you out of fight or flight mode. And by inducing a yawn, it literally makes you yawn.
Yeah.
And you just feel this sort of relief. If it's not a yawn, you might have a sigh of relief. You might not yawn, and that's okay too. But the point is, by breathing in that way, you're kind of triggering and communicating to your body that everything really is okay. You're safe. You're safe. Like, you're okay. You might be feeling some weird sensations. You might be feeling a little bit different, but you're okay at the end of the day. And so knowing that on a physical level is, of course, what we're really after. And by breathing in that way before bed, you're kind of helping prime yourself to do it. So that's number one. For anyone out there who's having trouble falling asleep, step one is get out of fight or flight. Make sure that you're in, if you don't know what that is, look up the difference between the sympathetic system and the parasympathetic nervous system. Just look that up and realize that the one big reason you're probably having trouble falling asleep is you're in the fight or flight mode. And there's simple things you can do like that breathing exercise to get yourself out of it.
Definitely. Christina says, I'm always afraid I won't be able to handle them anymore. Janice agrees that this is a really common thing. It's feeling like it's just overbearing, like it's so stressful. And Christina, what you're illustrating is kind of the worst part of panic attacks, which is that auxiliary anxiety about the panic attack. So it's bad enough that you have this fight or flight mechanism that triggers, but now you're scared that it's going to happen. And that's exactly what the feedback loop is. It's this fear that creates the sensation, which creates the fear, and that creates a panic attack. So you're scared of the sensation and you're creating a panic attack, not by choice, not to blame you for it, of course, but we find that involuntarily there's just these really scared parts of us, and we have to go back and crush that feedback loop. So Christina, what I want to do is I'm actually going to send you a copy of the panic response plan, which talks all about this how to stop the feedback loop much more in depth. Christina, what you can do is just private message us here with your email, and we'll send you a free copy of the panic response plan.
Mm-hmm. And so just know, like, this idea of not being able to handle them anymore. Feel free to expand on that, but from what I'm hearing, it's like there's this fear of like, one day they're going to overwhelm me, or one day I'm going to lose this battle or something. And it's just important to know that you're not. Like the anxiety is just showing up as a physical sensation. They have their limits. They can't kill you. They can't make you go crazy. They're just physical sensations. And you have very likely already experienced probably the most intense physical sensations related to anxiety. This is an important concept to understand. It's like your body has a limit. It's not going to just keep getting worse. No, you have probably already experienced pretty much the worst panic attack there is. You might have more in the future. They might last a variety of lengths. But in terms of the intensity of the experience, you've probably already experienced it. And because of that, you can rest assured, like, you're going to survive it. If you have one tomorrow, if you have one next week, you're going to survive it. You're going to be okay. They're never going to overwhelm you. There's not going to be a point where you can't handle them. And what's really good, what we talk about in the panic response plan is write down all the reasons that you think why you might not be able to handle them. So on like a piece of paper, you might say like, this time's different because blank, or after so many years blank. Write down whatever thoughts, like the thoughts that are floating through your mind that are causing this. Write them down and get very clear on them. Don't let them just be vague and floating around. Get clear on them so that you can actually talk to them. You can understand them. You might be able to give them a reply, some sort of like response. And so that is a first step in just getting yourself familiar and aware of that. Okay, here's why I feel like I'm not going to be able to handle this anymore. And here's what I can do about it. Just writing it down and being clear about it. That's a huge, huge step.
Right. And you're also exercising kind of a different part of your brain that will apply when you go into the panic attack. It's like, wait. We didn't exercise exploring this. And so you can catch your parts of you doing that emotional reasoning. No. This is the time I'm going to die. It's not. No, it's not. And so you can start to observe that part of you. To the new people, and I say this all the time, you have so many different thought patterns and parts, like neural pathways they're called, but parts of you that are going to do different things. And there's going to be panicky parts of you that do that emotional reasoning. that, oh, this is the one where we're going to, oh my God, this is so bad. And that's a part of the feedback loop. So when you have that familiarity that you've done when you're not in a panic state, it's going to translate when you are into that panic state to break that feedback loop. That's why it's so important to implement these practices that we're talking about when you're feeling good, because it helps you when you're feeling bad. It's the same as an athlete who trains. They don't train during the game. They train during practice, and they get that muscle memory so that when they're in the game, they don't have to think about anything. They kind of have that motor memory, that muscle memory. So that it's kind of like an automatic thing. And this will help make it more of an automatic thing when you have that panic attack to say, oh, I know what's going to happen now. Like, I know, okay, so this is the symptom. Yeah, this is what it is. It's happening right now. And this is the part of me that's saying, no, this is the time where everything's going to go. No, this is what it is. Yeah, you're going to be okay.
You get aware of the pattern, and it becomes like a movie.
Yeah, that you've seen before.
Mm-hmm, exactly. You're like, I know how this ends. It ends with me being okay.
Yeah.
So let's not make as big of a deal about it.
Yeah.
And that comes naturally. You don't have to force that necessarily.
Yeah.
But over time, you'll be like, okay, I am gonna be fine. I don't have to worry about the outcome.
Yeah. Now that happened with you with The Little Mermaid, right? You watched it so many times that you didn't get as scared as a kid during the end. I loved The Little Mermaid when I was a kid. Let's look at some more here. Okay. Christina's or Stephanie's sympathizing. I know it's constant. Edita says there's an app for box breathing. It helps me. That's great. Yeah, any kind of guided app. We should actually record a video of just like 2 minutes of box breathing that people can use. Aaron says she's grateful she found us. Aaron, so much love to you. We're grateful that you found us too. How are you doing? Post some thoughts in the chat so we know a little bit more about you. Do you want to read Christina's comment here?
So she said, I've been dealing with panic attacks since 8 years old, 37 now, and it feels worse as I get older. The last 2 years have been extra rough. My driving has drastically changed. It's embarrassing. I always feel like I'm on the cusp of losing control and have panic attacks that will push me over the edge. I'm on meds and in therapy. The dread and constant fear is overwhelming. What do you think about that? What are some reasons why it could be? She says it feels worse as she gets older.
There's a lot of different factors. First of all, how long have you been working with the therapist? Have you been going to the same person for years? It may be time to try something else. That's what happened to me a couple times, where I met with therapists who I felt like we had an educational time, and then it got really stagnant and plateaued, and I kind of went too long. So Christina, it may be time to pivot into something else. Your driving has drastically changed. It's embarrassing. I mean, there could be a couple different reasons. If there's some underlying emotional stuckness there, if there's some traumatic incident that's manifesting into panic attacks, which happens a lot, and you haven't uncovered what it is, and you haven't really reprocessed or been able to process through that, that could be a reason why it's getting worse, because you're getting older. You could be avoiding certain situations where that could be really exacerbating the problem. Avoidance breeds more anxiety, and that's kind of a double-edged sword, because if you're having a panic attack when you drive, you're going to naturally avoid driving and want to drive very less. I just talked to a client yesterday who's having a lot of trouble driving. So we're going to do some kind of controlled exposure therapy. But Christina, more than anything, you're not stuck in this. You have to keep going. And it's time maybe to evolve or switch up the treatment you're looking at for it. Look, we're not. This comes with the caveat of we're not psychiatrists or psychologists, so we don't give advice. But I can tell you with in my medication and some friends and clients that have used medications long term with the same dosage or stuff, their bodies a lot of times develop the tolerance to it, and so the dosage for them is kind of all over the place. And so I've seen people on medication where it maybe have worked for 4 or 5 months stop working. We just shot a video about placebos and reverse placebos that are, the medication may have worked as a bit of a placebo for you for a long time. Or your body may have developed a tolerance and it's just not working anymore. And that's how the majority of psych meds work, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. It's like when you're going through panic attacks and anxiety, you can often feel like you've tried everything, when in reality you've tried very, very, very few things. So this happens a lot. I'll talk to somebody and I'll ask them, what have you tried? And they say, I've tried everything. I've gone to this therapist and that therapist and this therapist and that therapist. And I've tried this medication and that medication and this medication. But then when you dig in a little further, it's like, okay, but was each of those therapists using a different therapy style? Was each of those medications drastically different? Or were they in kind of the same family of, SSRIs? So even beyond that, it's like, that's just a couple things. Okay.
Right.
Therapy and medication. That's just like, have you tried exercise? Have you
Right.
tried daily exercise? Have you tried diet changes? There's like 3 or 4 different diets you can experiment with. Have you tried meditation? Have you tried IFS, internal family systems? Have you tried, the list
Getting
goes
out
on.
in nature. Have you tried changing your social circle? Have you tried reading books about how to have confrontational conversations? Have you tried, all different support systems? I mean, and then have you tried them all together?
Yeah.
Which is, there's tons of stuff that will make you feel 2% better, 5% better, and some of them will make you feel 80% better. I know exercise for me was like an incredible 40 to 50% better, which is absolutely incredibly
So
significant.
keep trying things. This is the main thing. Is like, and if something doesn't work after a few months, or after, let's say, after 3 to 6 months, if you are seeing no improvement, move on to something else. Like, keep trying things. I know you said you've been dealing with this since 8 years old, 37 now. I highly doubt you were trying lots of things in your teenage years. So think of it as, instead of I've been suffering for this long, think I've been trying things for this long, right? And when you can say you've been trying things for 10, 20 years, I don't know anyone who gets to that point. I really don't. Anyone who I've talked to who's been suffering for a really, really long time typically hasn't been doing that much to try to fix it, really. I've never heard of anyone who says, I've been doing every single thing imaginable for 20 years and nothing's working.
Not if you're being honest with yourself,
Yeah.
for the most part. Yeah. And if you are, and Christina, I want to invite you just to send us a private message too. I want to hop on the phone with Christina and just do kind of an audit of all the stuff that make sure she's trying what she can. Janice says, I've suffered 50 years. It's so unfair.
It's the same thing we just said.
Yeah, right. Janice, I'm sorry. You too, Janice. Send me a message. I want to hop on the phone with you for a free consultation and just do an audit and get down to the nitty gritty. Guys, working through it, like high anxiety and panic attacks, it's just not an overnight thing. I mean, 50 years is
It's too long to suffer
that's
from
too
anything.
long to suffer from it. Yeah, definitely. So let's get it
and
down.
I'm sorry you're going through that, and sorry you've been going through that. But like even in your situation, let's talk. Let's see what.
Yeah,
you've
let's
been,
get you on the phone.
I'm curious what you've tried and what hasn't and has worked so far.
Yeah. What's up, Cheryl?
How you doing?
You didn't miss us. We're right here, yo. Welcome. Good to see you.
Christina says the thoughts accompanied with the sensations seem unbearable at times.
Yeah.
And they are. I mean, okay. When you are plagued by thoughts, particularly ones that are really dark, really, really negative, maybe thoughts about the future, thoughts about different scenarios, there's a couple ways that you can go about this. In terms of how to deal with really overwhelming thoughts, I would say there's 3 ways that I like to go to. Number 1 is to treat them as passing phenomenon. So instead of really engaging in the thoughts in a super, super serious way, you're kind of treating them as passing phenomenon. You're indifferent to them. An analogy that I would use is let's say a kid, like a 4-year-old, says, "Hey, there's a blue elephant in the bathroom." The response that you have is you're not arguing with that statement. You're not, debating like, "Oh no, there's not a. Here's the reasons why there's not a." You're just kind of like, "Okay, that's nice." You're indifferent. You're like, "Okay, I don't really know what to say," because you obviously don't believe that thought, and you know that in a minute they might be saying something else. So you have that same attitude to your own thoughts. You kind of go, if there's a really scary, wild thought, you kind of just go, "Okay, I noted. Thanks for the heads up. Noted. Okay." And you're kind of just indifferent to it. You're treating it as a passing phenomenon, which is what it is. It's a passing phenomenon. Now, sometimes you have thoughts that are really sticky. There's kind of like a momentum to them. And because they're so dark, they can maybe be hard to handle. And in those, I found that the best thing to do, the best approach is compassion. It's almost like you're personifying that thought, and you're imagining it as, an entity, and then you imagine yourself giving love to that entity. So no matter what it looks like, you just sense that, there's a reason that this entity is spewing so much pain and hate towards me. They must be hurting too. So it comes from a deep, deep understanding that to be able to say such things, they must be hurting too. So you give them compassion. You kind of give them love. And this is some people might have a hard time with this for various reasons because it sounds cheesy or because it sounds whatever, but it really, really works.
But that's a clear indicator that there's no attachment figure for that entity, for that part of you. That if first of all, if you're being overwhelmed by these sensations, then you're kind of not even there. There is no what's happening is you're being overwhelmed by these anxious parts, these anxious thought patterns, and that can be really normal with extreme parts and emotions. That it makes sense. But what the practice is in working through that is being able to break the feedback loop, which really means being able to still be present and not be overwhelmed or identified with the sensations, with the thoughts, with any of that. And therefore, you have the presence of mind to be able to do what Ennis said, meet them with compassion, help out these parts of you that are really stuck. And it's a clear indicator if you can't look in the mirror when you're having a struggle and say something like, hey, I totally understand. I get that we don't feel good or we're scared right now or whatever. And if that feels weird or uncomfortable to you, that's a decent indicator that you need to practice that. Yeah. Because otherwise you either have somebody externally who's doing that for you, and that's absolutely unsustainable, or you just haven't developed that groundedness and ability to do that. So you can literally say it out loud and practice it. And then just when you identify the fear, just be like, wow, it's happening. Okay, I understand. And do exactly what Ennis said.
And the third method, besides treating it as a passing phenomena and treating it as an entity that's hurting and giving it compassion and love, is to be curious about it. That's another big one, is we don't really know why these thoughts are coming. We know that they're coming because some part of us believes they're helpful. It's attempting equilibrium. It's attempting safety. It's attempting order of some kind. And so you can basically get curious about it and ask, why are you here? Why are you visiting me? How can I help you? What's wrong? And get curious about the nature of these thoughts. So these three methods, treating it as a passing phenomena, being compassionate and loving toward it, and being curious about it. These are all methods of handling these difficult thoughts. And when they feel overwhelming, just getting yourself beyond them. And sometimes none of these methods work, and you just have to go into your body. When I say go into your body, I allude to what we were talking about earlier. Your body has these sensations, and the sensations are created by the story and the thoughts that you're telling yourself in that moment. So by focusing on your body and just feeling it, you're kind of cutting off the source, the fuel of what's creating all these sensations. So that's a fourth method, if you will.
Right.
To just focus on your body.
I want to add that when you say the stories you're telling yourself, what he means is the stories that have formed through your past experiences, through emotional trauma, through even positive emotional experiences. It's the activation of kind of your past experiences into the story that happens in between the thought or the feeling that you have. Because you're not choosing to tell yourself a story about this stuff. It's already already there. And that's why curiosity is the foundation of all this, is because you've got all these parts of you. You've got all these, these thought patterns from past experiences, and you need to get curious about them to understand them, because they happen so fast. You don't even know, and it's happening all the time. When you're looking at my face and judging what I'm wearing or what, those are all stories that just happen so automatically. And so this is when people kind of have these internal conflicts about, like, I catch myself saying wretched things, like in the car, in my mind, like, this guy cut me off, he must be an a-hole or something. Like, whoa, easy, boy. Kind of like that self-coaching. It's the same with your emotions, though, and it's this, and that's what's activated, is those panic attacks can be activated. And we got our first organic YouTube comment, buddy. This is from Ahmed Marfani, and she says, I was diagnosed with severe OCD and still going through it. Ahmed, can you share a little bit more about your story? Did you have a question? You said, I want to share my story of what I've gone through and still going through. Tell us a bit more about your OCD. We'd love to talk about OCD in general, because OCD is a manifestation of an anxiety. That's an extreme manifestation.
Yeah.
Let's keep running through here, though.
Okay.
Eddie says, Jim, I drove around tonight talking to myself how great of a night I'm going to have. Looking forward to my morning, having fun things to do. Meditation, breathing helps me so much. Edita, you're an absolute warrior and a rock star. Thanks for the feedback. Thank you, guys. Stephanie, you're welcome. Christina says, yes. Hell yeah. I don't know what you're saying yes to. I don't remember, but
hopefully something we said.
Yeah. Hi from Cortland, New York. Paula. Hi
Paula.
Hi from Nashville, Tennessee. Anisha says, it may lead to doing something bad to yourself. Jim has helped me with that. Anisha, we won't say that ST word. We won't say that because it triggers Anisha. It triggers a part of her too much. Just kidding, Anisha. Miss talking to you. Hope we get to connect soon. Janice from Buffalo, New York. What's up from Nashville?
How's it going?
You want to read some more so it's not just my voice?
Well, I mean, they came for your voice. Let's be honest.
Okay.
It's beautiful.
Christina says, after 30 years and seeing how much I've allowed this to change me makes me scared of it getting out of my control. Christina, I just would be careful with seeing how much you've allowed this to change you. It's kind of happening naturally, Christina. And where you can empower yourself is getting help. Like, that's, everybody needs help if they're stuck in whatever cycles they're in. You're not stuck permanently, but you might just need some support. And that's how we end every YouTube video, just about, is reminding people, hey, no matter how bad things are, you're not stuck. You might just need some support.
I love that.
And
that's so true.
Need some new information. Yeah. That's what we're salesmen, and our product is hope. That's what we sell. We're selling hope because it's true. It sells itself. It's the truth. Cheryl says, cool, you're still live. What's up, Cheryl? Sharon Fucci Fox. That is one of the coolest names I've ever heard. I'm going to say it again. Sharon Fucci Fox. Panic and anxiety got worse since the pandemic. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about pandemic
that's a
anxiety.
Story that I feel like has come up 100 times this last month even.
Yeah.
That since the pandemic hit, people's anxiety has gone through the roof. And I think there's like multiple different reasons for this. Number one is, of course, the direct fear of like, what if I get sick? What if somebody I know gets sick?
Yeah.
That would suck, of course.
What if they die?
Yeah, I remember my parents had COVID a couple months ago. And I remember when they got diagnosed, it was a scary experience. It was like my mind would race with thoughts about, what if this happens to them? What if that happens to them? So understandably, there's a fear of illness. On top of that, there's a fear of instability. Like, our economy could be affected. People's jobs are definitely getting affected. The society seems to be up in arms in lots of different ways. And so there's some anxiety there about the unsafe and uncertain nature of our country right now. There's also fears that are just plain coming from other people. So when I say that, I don't mean to blame other people, but when you walk into a room and there's 10 people there who are all anxious, that's going to have an effect on you.
Yeah.
Even if you're a super calm person.
Yeah.
If you walk into a room and everyone's feeling a certain way, that has an effect on you. And so because there's so many people that are experiencing anxiety right now, now you may feel like, well, I'm not talking to them and I'm not on social media, but even if you're all alone in your house, you're still connected. You're still connected on a, let's call it a spiritual level. You're connected in some way to the people around you in your country and all over the world. And so if there's a lot of people that are suffering, you're going to feel that on some level. You're going to pick up on that.
Yeah, it's normal. So what do we do about it? So let's take a multi-tiered approach. I would start with listing as many things as you can, and I'm talking like 100. What has this pandemic given you? What has it done for you? Has it done anything positive for you? I can say things like, well, for me, it's caused me a bit of a career change into a much more meaningful level. It's caused me to learn have the time to learn the skills that I wanted to. It's caused me to spend more time with my Millie, with my dog, which has been wonderful. Like, people know who that is. I can easily list like 5,000 more. It's given us more time to spend together and do this live stream, and maybe it's led you here. So that's a really kind of simple intellectual exercise that you can do. As far as setting boundaries and kind of breaking that empathy or trying to become less and less affected by people around you, it starts with just, first of all, bringing that in your conscious mind when you go places, is kind of coaching yourself and saying, okay, I know up to now I've been susceptible to those around me. So when you're around people and you feel like you're starting to feel anxious, check in and see if there's anybody around you that's anxious. And then I will do simple exercises like this, like, whoa, that's not mine. Like, I don't need to feel scared. I don't need to feel anything right now. Like, that's somebody else's, or they can have their anxiety. And you're setting emotional boundaries between you and somebody else around you. Because empathy is it's a double-edged sword. I think all of us here would say that we're sensitive people in some way, meaning that we can pick up on other people's emotions, or we're impacted by those around us, or maybe certain things. And so to work yourself out of a highly sensitive or empathetic state, you have to start becoming aware of it and then setting those emotional boundaries. Meaning, I could be compassionate, I could be loving, but I don't have to take on what's around me. And then you can tell if you still do, or you feel guilty like you're abandoning somebody. That's something to explore, either write about and journal yourself, or to explore with a coach or a counselor, so that you can help that part of you that feels guilty or feels like you're abandoning other people. That's a really simple breakdown of how to kind of stop, or at least find yourself, recalibrate your empathy level, because it's not sustainable, and actually you're not helping others by being empathetic. You need to be healthy, and you need to be at the top of your game.
I echo that 100%. Just to add to that, there's a phenomenon happening due to the pandemic that most people don't experience until their retirement. So my dad recently retired, and like most retired people, he experienced the challenge of the transition. It's like, how do you go from being so busy to suddenly having a lot of time to yourself? And when people suddenly have a lot of time, it can be challenging, because your body uses that as a chance to process a lot of emotions. So people now, during the pandemic, when maybe for the first time in a long time, they stopped seeing their friends as much. They had to stay in more. Maybe they got laid off from their job. And maybe you just found yourself with more time than usual. That void is used by your body to process old emotions, so that anything that you experienced at an earlier point in your life that wasn't fully processed gets processed during these periods of rest. So you may be experiencing things that are not caused by your current situation. You may think it's the pandemic, but really it's just the fact that you have some time on your hands, and you're sitting there on the couch, and it's like all this old stuff is coming up. This is a blessing. It really is. It may seem like this sucks, but you want to get this baggage out of you as soon as you can. You don't have to rush the process, but just go with it. If you're sitting on the couch and you get hit with a wave of difficult emotion, if you get hit with a wave of whatever it might be, instead of pushing it away and, processing it later, let it come up. Let that emotion, that sensation, that experience, let it come up and be processed, so that it can actually come up and out. The example I usually give with this is a thorn. If you get a thorn in your fingertip, you don't even have to pull it out. You can just give it a couple days, and your body will push that thorn out. And so your body does the same thing with emotions. If you just get out of the way, it'll do the processing. It'll get these emotions out of you. It wants to be light and baggage free. And the more baggage you get out of your system, the lighter and better you're going to feel overall. And so, as challenging as it is, sit with the emotions as they come up as much as you can, because ultimately you're doing so much good inner processing, inner cleansing during this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we got
necessary.
Got some questions on YouTube.
I want to. Ahmed is sharing a little bit more about the OCD. So she says,
it's not he.
I'm not sure. No.
Okay.
I was diagnosed with severe OCD a few months back, and I was put on hypnosis treatment along with antidepressants, which I'm still taking. I was an extrovert, but this OCD messed up my life. It made me an introvert. I wish my life becomes normal. I just wish. I'm a theater actor and model from Pakistan. I have so many goals. Welcome from Nashville, Tennessee. I have so many goals to achieve, but OCD stopped everything. I've stopped talking to people, and all I've done is isolate myself. I've given up on everything, but I'm still trying to keep my willpower strong so that I can go through it. I have contamination and religious OCD both at the same time. I don't know why I'm saying this, but I'm still saying all of this to both of you. Ahmed, first of all, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. And just know that your OCD is a symptom. It's not an identification. Even if you've been diagnosed, it's not a life sentence. It's a symptom of something, right? So our anxiety symptoms manifest in a lot of different ways. For a lot of people in our Facebook chat here did I feel like we're doing like a telethon? We're like the Facebook chat, and it's so awesome.
And we got a call from China.
Yeah, Ahmed, how you feeling? No, but for a lot of the people, it's manifesting in driving anxiety, or it's manifesting in the avoidance of certain people. Or I've had a client who just one room at work for her would set off her panic attacks, and we had to dig and understand why, and we did. So Ahmed, for you, it's maybe you're taking the wrong approach. I mean, maybe medication is a good bridge for the short term, but I would recommend you get with a really good counselor or coach, and you explore the heck out of not only where this came from, but how you can deal with the symptoms now to start to break that feedback loop. So understanding the impulse of the OCD, understanding the fear behind it. How do you work with that to dive in much deeper and mine out and understand with a lot of curiosity, what is it? Like, what is the need that OCD thoughts is fulfilling? What's triggering this anxiety that's leading to the OCD? Because the OCD, again, is the symptom. And if you have a symptom in this life, if you have a runny nose, you can wipe your nose, but you need to get to the bacteria or the viral infection inside of you to deal with the source of the runny nose. And it's the same with OCD, 100%.
Because there's something there, right? Like the reason you're having OCD is because there's a part of you that's basically using it as a way to avoid a very, very difficult emotion or maintain control over your life in some way.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, it could be anything. It could be a fear of losing control. It could be a fear of getting rejected. It could be a fear of
being alone.
Whatever it is, that underlying thing that you really, really want to avoid becomes the reason the OCD is coming up. And so you can manage the symptom of OCD for a long time, but if you never get to the root of what's causing it, it'll keep popping up, and it may just pop up in different forms. So a holistic root level solution is needed. Feel free to add to that. If there's something that we're missing in the story or some aspect that doesn't make sense, just let us know, and we'll try to be as clear as we can.
But it's important to know that OCD is a symptom of whatever that feeling is. So you help that part of you that has that feeling. You help the part of you that has the impulse. Janice agrees. Awesome. Edisa says, my healthy diet is a huge help. Also, meditation through the day and breathing helps when the big A hits me. Edisa has a bunch of different names for anxiety. And she says, for me, hormonal changes are definitely not helping. Being 50 is not fun. Cheryl says, driving anxiety is terrible. Driving anxiety is terrible. I had a bout with weird flying anxiety. Like, I was fine forever. And then I there was like a 3-month period where I was flying a lot and I was getting freaked out, man. It was weird. And so I just ran these. Thank God I was versed in all these practices. I ran the practices. I was able to stop the feedback loop and stay with the sensation, and it subsided.
It's really interesting.
Yeah,
Real
but
quick-
I know that there's something in me that I need to mine out. So I actually started going back to therapy last week to really understand some of these
awesome.
anxieties.
Oh, let me know how that goes. I'm curious. My dad has a really intense fear of flight too, even though.
Yeah, mine's not related to the fear of flight, but that was the manifestation of something. Yeah, because it'll change into different things at different times. So I'm trying to understand it.
Just a quick comment on what Edith said. It was like, being 50 sucks. I think that's like statistically true. If you look at,
what do you mean?
There's a lot of studies that track people's level of happiness throughout their life.
And 50 sucks.
And 50 is one of the lowest points.
That's so interesting.
And it's like 18, or I can't remember the lowest points. It was like 18 was a low point, 50 is a low point, and then everything after 50 is like better and better and better. So 60 was better than 50, 70 was better than 60, 80 was better than 70, and just the happiness level of people tended to go up after 50. But 50 was the low point. So Edita, it's only up from here.
Yeah, say something that's an uptick, though. This is like...
That's just what I'm saying. It's only up from here.
Edita, we've talked about assertive adaptation, which means you have the power to do what you're doing and try to make 50 better. So write down, identify all the ways that 50 sucks. And if it's all related to anxiety, then it wouldn't matter if you were 50, 25, or 15. That just sucks. Christina says, my driving changed because I had a panic attack at a red light and you hit the nail right on the head with avoidance. Yeah, Christina, that's the trick, is you really have to face the anxieties, but you can do it in an intelligent way with kind of incremental exposure therapy, in addition to some really great practices to destimulate your nervous system so that you're firing on all cylinders. Janice says, I hate driving. What is that? Scared?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah. That was a cliffhanger of a comment there, Janice. I'm scared.
Well, we're sorry you're feeling that way, Janice. It's really it's difficult, right? Because driving is one of those things that's so essential to your life, and it sucks that you avoid it because of the anxiety. But for that in particular, we recommend some exposure therapy. If you let us know if you've tried that and if it worked or not. But exposure therapy, when it comes to driving, I've seen really works. And
it's important to do. I have a next session set up with a client with driving anxiety to just put on her headphones, get on a call, and go to the car, go for a drive, and just to narrate, to get the information. Because a lot of times it's like, well, I'm scared to drive, and we find, well, it's not that you're scared to drive, it's that you're scared to leave the house, or you're scared to be alone, or you're scared of what might happen if you So if you can really get really intentional about identifying what's going on, then you're one step closer to, now how do we deal with what's going on? Mm-hmm. Christina says she's not familiar with IFS, to be honest. Christina, IFS is internal family systems. It's a therapy model that thousands of therapists use now. It's basically family therapy turned inward. The basis of it being that you are not this one mono mind. You are all these different systems and parts inside of you. And the parts are basically these kind of sub-personalities that you have in you. You can see this really often if you feel like have an internal conflict. You kind of hear two opposing opinions inside of you. And we use it as a kind of personification of how to connect with these parts, especially with like anxious parts or parts that are stuck in the past, to that you can connect with them and that you can help unburden them or help them heal, to let go. And the byproduct of that being, you live more in alignment, you live a more peaceful, joyful life. We've got another question on YouTube. I feel like I'm talking really fast. Am I?
I think you're talking normal to me.
That's awesome. William Grennan. William must be from Philly because he's got a Philadelphia Flyers logo as his thing, as his logo here. Do you know any breathing techniques that could improve my breathing from anxiety that I haven't heard of? I've had it for a few months now, and I've done so many things to try to get rid of it. Any anxiety techniques that I perhaps haven't heard of?
If you go to the beginning, I don't know if you're able to rewind the live stream, but if you watch the beginning of the video, we talk about 2 breathing techniques that are really, really effective. One is called the box breathing, where you breathe in a 4-4-4-4 pattern. So it's like exhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, and repeat.
Repeat, repeat, repeat.
And then the other method is to induce a yawn. So you inhale twice, and then you slowly exhale. Try both of those right now, and let me know how it goes.
All right. Anisha says, do the genetic testing to find the right medication. It worked for me. That medication just not working for you. Yeah, guys, if you are going to go the route of medication, it should almost always start with the genetic testing to see what medications you're genetically resistant to. That it's amazing to me that not everybody does that now. That's insanity.
Yeah.
I don't know what this is, this weird comment. That's mine. I wrote that. Hey, Paula, post question stories. I don't know where that came from. Cheryl says, hey, I had a cardiac cath. I don't know what that means. You know what that means?
I think it's a type of medical procedure.
All right. How'd it go, Cheryl? Anisha says, well, once I found the medication that worked for me and the panic attacks lessened, keyword lessened, now I'm able to focus on the deeper issues and not when is the next attack going to occur.
That's great. Yeah, using medication as a way to be able to focus on the long-term solution.
Bridge the gap. Absolutely. Medication is meant for short-term use, and when we say short-term, ideally we're talking, I think 6 months is kind of the peak average for people that a medication can bridge the gap, but there is no substitute for doing the work. It is not an overnight process to work this through. And the investment, like time-wise, effort-wise, financially, it pays off incredible dividends. I don't care if I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on books, mentors, healing procedures, counselors, everything. And just the tidbits I took from here and everywhere and put together to create my life and my health is like,
it really is
pays
worth it.
back in incredible dividends, man.
Some people get scarred because they go to a therapist and that particular therapist did not work for them, or they try a couple things and it didn't work. Keep trying things.
You got to keep
trying
swinging
things, because this stuff, like there is a practice and a method and a therapy model out there for you.
Yeah.
That'll work for you.
Yeah.
And as long as you're sincere about it, that's an important. I use that word because it's like a mixture of you're really trying and you're also really honest. So you're sincere about doing things with that therapy model. You'll see some improvements.
And a counselor, I would think of a counselor or a therapist or a psychiatrist as like a mental health consultant. Like they should know and have the tools to help you, but ultimately it's going to be up to you. So take the information they have, use their sessions. If there's things in a therapy session or a coaching session that are working for you, make it known. If there's things that aren't working for you, have them explain the why they're doing what they're doing, and really set your intention of like, I want to really work through this holistically. I don't just want to coast. I don't want to just show up and vent unless that's what you need for a little bit. But that you really let that intention be, no, I want to work through this. I want to stop having panic attacks. How do I get from point A to point B? Mm-hmm. Karen's replying to Janice. I'm not sure what that reply is. Sharon Fucci Fox, love that name, says, hard to leave the house. Agoraphobia driving makes me panic and heart races lightheaded. Sharon, yeah. Sharon, if you're still around, shoot me your email. I want to send you a copy of the PRP, the Panic Response Plan, so that you at least have some semblance of, I also just want to write down that name because I love it, so that you also have some plan of attack for when it's happening and some steps to move forward of how to really get to the bottom of the panic.
And that goes for anyone who's still with us. You're a trooper. Thanks for being here with us. We do this thing where we offer a free session to anybody if it's their first time. If you've never spoken to us on the phone before, these can be a really, really valuable use of your time. It's just something we like to do to get to know people as a way. I mean, we do work with clients one-on-one, weekly, monthly. So this is a primary way where we get to meet people. But we'd like to do the first session for free just because we want to get to know you, and before you commit to anything, it's obviously you want to get to know us too. So reach out to us and take us up on that offer.
Reach us out,
Take
man.
us- take
reach
us out.
Reach us out. But yeah, there's no obligation. You're not signing up for anything, and we're not going to hound you, or we're not giving hard sells here. We're truly
just trying to help.
try to help out. Yeah, we really want to help out. Christina says, thank you guys so much. Glad I stumbled upon this tonight. You sent messages requested. Great, Christina. We'll be sending you the PRP and hoping we get on the phone with you. Yes, might have been on and off, Janice says, but it scares me and my day is so stressful. Yeah. Well, if you're living you're basically in a war zone, Janice. If there's a part of you that's scared of when is this heart attack-like sensation going to happen without any rhyme or reason at all, it's freaky, man. It's really freaky.
Yeah.
Sharon Fucci Fox says, thank you guys. I needed this video tonight. Lots of love to you,
thank you
Sharon.
so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate
it's beautiful. Sharon replying to Christina says, I totally understand how you feel. Beautiful. Edita. I learned today from Jim. I am not going backwards. You're absolutely not. Good days and bad, but more good days. Driving, walking, mountain biking, going to the vineyard. I couldn't do those things 9 months ago. Practice, practice, practice. Don't stifle. Life is too precious. Getting angry sometimes helps. Let's talk about that. How long is this going to control me? Enough is enough.
We made a video recently about how using anger as a way of confronting the anxiety, because sometimes when you're angry, that also comes with a certain amount of courage where you can stand your ground more easily. And anger is not somewhere where you should spend most of your time, for sure, but as an occasional kind of if you've been feeling guilty and apathetic and sad and scared, sometimes a little bit of anger to get yourself out of that really deep, dark place and kind of wake yourself up and take some action can be helpful. So utilize that. You're all probably frustrated. I know I am on some level at how different parts of your life are going. Whether it's your emotional life or your relationships or your anxiety, there's some party that's frustrated about it and just wishes you could feel better already. Channel that frustration into some kind of action. That's a really, really helpful thing to do. But don't stay angry, obviously.
Absolutely. You're a smart guy, dude.
I appreciate that,
You're
man.
a real
It
smart
really
guy.
means a lot.
You're a smart guy.
Thank you.
I love working with you. Sharon says, going in stores, I have full-blown attack. I can't breathe, have to run out. Christina says, wow, yes, the stories I tell myself are complete lies that I believe are true. Christina, I wouldn't even, it is like you are telling yourself these, but think of them as kind of these sub-personalities and get real curious about why are they telling you these stories. It's almost always to protect you from feeling something you don't want to feel. And once you get that curiosity, and Christina, you're going to need help with this to implement these kind of processes or these practices to do this. But try to get real curious and compassionate with those parts of you, because they're doing it for a reason. Every part of you is doing what they think is best, even if it's out of control or even if it's a thing like OCD. Janice says, I've done that, walked out of stores. Yeah. Well, I mean, I know a lot of people that get overwhelmed, and it's not even a sensory overload thing, but in a crowd of people, or just feeling like they have to get out of somewhere. That happens. That's a common thing.
I had that with anytime you feel stuck somewhere. Like this literally sometimes happens during this live stream where it's like, 10 minutes in, you're like, oh, wow, we're going to be here a minute, huh? And it would be weird if I just left. So that creates a pressure of like, oh, now I got to be here.
And now you're trapped.
And then there's like a cycle of thoughts that follows that.
Yeah.
And of course, it's just a cycle of thoughts, right? It's like, I chose to be here. I want to be here. I'm loving it. And yet, just having that irrational sense of being trapped is enough to set off a desire to walk out of the store or, walk out of a conversation even. But it's natural. It's just it's just a symptom of that anxiety. And the more that you're able to meet those thoughts with either compassion or curiosity or treating them as passing phenomena, you get to have more control over your life. You get to keep doing that thing that you want to do and not be derailed by the anxiety.
Yeah, William replied, he said, neither technique worked. I've been drinking about an average amount of water each day. Is there a different amount of water I should drink per day since I have anxiety? William, can you get a little more specific about the type of anxiety you're having? And William, let us know, what's the pattern? What are the thoughts you're having? Because anxiety is a little too general. And those methods we were sharing are to signal to your nervous system, hey, it's okay. And so maybe you didn't do them for long on the box breathing, or maybe there were additional steps that you needed to take to help you get out of fight or flight mode.
In terms of like water, I have no thoughts or comments on like how much water you should be drinking. I would just go with the standard recommendation.
Yeah, water.
That doctors say these days. I think that's like 8 cups or something.
Unless you like to pee clear all day.
Yeah.
Kind of exciting, right? Can be.
It can be. Let's see.
Cheryl says a state of constant fight or flight is exhausting. Yeah, absolutely. And people with chronic fatigue, a lot of them have chronic stress, unfortunately, and they're fatigued from just that adrenaline release and then dump, and then adrenaline release and dump.
Yeah.
And so you have to identify, what is the potential threat that my mind is perceiving to set off this mechanism?
When people do that breathing technique of 2 inhalations and 1 long exhalation to induce a yawn, and they start to get out of that fight or flight, I often hear people say they get hit with a wave of tiredness and sleepiness and hunger. And these are all things that get kind of, you don't notice how tired you are and you don't notice how hungry you are when you're running on cortisol and adrenaline. So when you go back into that calm mode, it kind of hits you and you realize how much of a rest you really did need. I mean, if you can't take a nap in the afternoon, like if you're someone you have a hard time just taking a nap in the afternoon, this is a sure sign that you're in a fight or flight mode.
Yeah, or if you lay down and the second you lay down, you're just out of it, that's a sign that your body's just feels like it's in a war zone all day and it's exhausted. Dan Spangler, my man, Dan the man. How you doing, Dan? So Cheryl agreed yes, and then he said he finally had an entire good day today. Dan, pumped to hear that, my brother.
Nice, man.
Pumped to hear that.
Glad to hear that.
Big, lots of love from Edita as well. All right. Wendy says, even knowing that anxiety and intrusive thoughts are temporary and don't define you, it still makes you wonder what is wrong with you for having these thoughts and feelings. Getting help from people who understand what you are going through and have the tools to help you, like Jim, and I think she meant to say Ennis, but she called you Zen. That's a Freudian slip because you are pretty Zen. Really can help. Wendy, thank you so much for the testimonial. And there is nothing wrong with you. Like, that judgment is just another part of you that's formed. It's another anxiety. So you have to, again, differentiating, but also just unblending from these parts of you that guide or flood your thoughts. They're not you. You at your core are so accepting and confident and compassionate towards you and your parts and everybody else and creatures in the world that sounded really hippie with the creatures of the world.
That was beautiful.
It was nice, though.
That was beautiful.
I have a problem with intimacy sometimes. Anisha says, love Jim's analogy of OCD and a runny nose. Thanks, Anisha. Cheryl loves the big A. Edita, you're doing some great branding for anxiety right now. Edita says, if you're a woman, Ennis...
I think she's referring to that comment about 50 is a low point.
Oh, if you're a woman, yeah.
Guys and girls are statistically tend to be less happy, but that doesn't mean that needs to be bad. That's just like a statistical thing.
Right.
You can make your life at any year good or bad with a number of different things, and I think you personally are doing quite a lot at this. So
absolutely.
I mean, give yourself a pat on the back because I think you deserve it, honestly.
Cheryl says 55 sucks. And Eddie says her hormones sucks. And then Wendy says, can't say 50 is worse than 60. God, oh, geez. Lot of looking forward to we have to the years. No, guys, it's, for all you guys, being here is a step towards it not sucking. So you really have to celebrate the little victories. Even just being at this live stream and starting to take some steps to make your life better is incredible. So lots of love and support to you guys. We have a few minutes left. Let's see if we can clock these out here. Maria Martinez says, how do you help a grown child with this? Maria, how old is the grown child when you don't understand any of this? Maria, well, first of all, it depends on the age of the child. Is it a dependent? Are you talking like grown like 25 or are you talking grown like 17? Still a dependent, not a dependent. And unfortunately, Maria, your control over the situation kind of ends and their want to move forward or want to feel better. But one of the things that I can do with clients or people that I'm on the phone that feel hopeless or feel like it's not important is maybe just to, knowing their personality, either helping them know that they're not stuck, like really not stuck. And so in a really non-intrusive way that needs to be full of love, compassion, and patience. Just let them know they're not stuck, that there's ways that work. And then things like bringing them to the live stream just to start, to see people who are here, who are suffering from a similar thing. And also from like two of us who have suffered for a long time and then we're able to work through it, to bring them into a community of people who it's not very like, down and kind of unhappy. We're here we're not making light of the situation, but we're trying to make sure we're just emphasizing the hopeful spin, which is the truth, is that you're not stuck where you are. And life can be so amazing, like more amazing than you think.
100%. And just to add on, I think there's a great phrase called, you can't be a prophet in your own hometown. And I think that's pretty true, right? It doesn't matter how wise you are. It doesn't matter how much you know. If the people listening to you don't take you seriously or for whatever reason are not able to listen to you, then it's impossible to reach them. And more than that, if that person is not willing to change or do something, or if they don't feel the inspiration to change, it's really, really difficult to intervene. So that's why getting somebody outside of the family is often really helpful. It could be a YouTube channel like this. It could be a counselor. It could be anybody, the priest, the whoever. Just get somebody outside who you feel like they will listen to help as much as you can.
Yeah. And it's important that you have to balance that line of being intrusive with respecting, so build as much trust, try to build trust and rapport with that person is a foundational element to bridge that gap, to encourage them, let them know. Maria, if you want to private message us, I would be more than willing, and I'm sure Ennis would be too, to connect with.
Jim is like a really, really
hip and good-looking guy. Yeah,
he is half of those things for sure. But he's really, really good with like the younger generation. He's worked in different facilities.
Well, she's 30. Who she's talking about is 31, which is still my demo.
Still, yeah.
Because all of demos are my demo. I love everybody, man.
I love it. So Cheryl says, I ended up in the hospital, went for a stress test last Wednesday, had a lot of tension real quick. Did not even do a stress test, sent to ER angiogram on Thursday, so it wasn't just anxiety. PCP kept telling me. So glad I forced her to order me a stress test. Abnormal angiogram, seeing cardiologist. Well,
good luck, Cheryl.
Good luck. I really, really hope that it turns out good. I'm glad that you're getting a doctor to look at it. And I mean, look, sometimes these things have a medical reason. I had a client recently who just recently found out that she has celiac disease, and she's been eating lots of gluten, and of course that's been having all kinds of effects on her body. And she didn't know for years. She didn't know that she had celiac. So it's always good to get some more information. Yeah,
because one thing we didn't talk about too much, but we touched on it, but it's just the nervous system, just destimulating that nervous system.
Yeah.
And not even destimulating, but allowing it to heal in certain ways. So, Cheryl, best of luck and lots of love. Guys, can we all kind of send Cheryl some healing energy with all that? Edita says, done with coping, time to heal. Beautiful, Edita. Maria says she's 31. It is scary. Edita says, thank you for today. Lots of love to you, Edita. And let's close with William. William says, I'm not sure. I have asthma, and I just know that anxiety and asthma are what caused my breathing problems. He asks, how should I need to do those techniques? I think it's mostly general anxiety disorder, though. William, I think we need a little more information. So, William, what you can do is in the link below, I believe there is our email. William, email me and let's hop on a call and we can help understand what's going on so that we can differentiate what's the asthma and what's the what's the general anxiety and how can that be, because we can totally give you the tools and techniques and we can go over how to use them specifically.
Yeah, sometimes it's just hard to diagnose from just a couple sentences.
Yeah.
And so reach out. We'd love to hear your voice and kind of see what's going on from there.
That's Ennis@innersolutions.academy or Jim@innersolutions.academy or home@innersolutions.academy.
Hello at
Hello, sorry. Yeah, all right, thanks. So guys, listen, So much love to all of you, Ennis. So much love to you.
Thanks, man.
We're gonna go work out, man.
We're
We're gonna go work out.
Believe it or not,
Destimulate our nervous system.
I need it.
At 8:30 at night. But guys, this has been my favorite live stream so far, and we appreciate all your questions, all your stories. We appreciate the love. Ennis, is there anything you want to say to the chat?
Just thank you guys so much. Just you being here at this point, it means that you're trying your best with your life. You're trying to make some effort. Keep going. You really, really are not stuck. You might just need some help. So
don't try to steal my line. God, he's trying to steal my line, guys. You can find resources down below in the subtext. The YouTube channel is completely free. We're releasing about 3 to 10 videos every week. And if you have a request for a YouTube video or something you want us to talk about, you can email us or private message us here, and I guarantee we'll do one like that week.
Yeah, if you have a good question for us, we'll probably make a whole video to answer it, because we're in that phase of creating lots of content and getting it out there. So thanks again. Hope you guys have a great night. And until next time.
Thank you guys so much.
Be well.
Bye-bye. What is that beep?